guys. Where'd you? Oh, there you are. I almost couldn't see you guys. You're about just as small as Ferrari's chances at winning a title. So what's going on, you runoff areas? Welcome back to Apex F1, and this week we're going to be taking a look at another best livery for a legendary F1 driver. This week it's going to be Ayrton Senna, one of the greatest of all time, probably one of the best to ever drive in F1. But before we get into that, I just want to say, if you're new here, if you haven't seen my videos yet, feel free to lick the stamp, send that subscribe button down below, and also like 70% of you watching haven't subscribed, so why don't you just go down there, do that, and you'll be able to watch weekly Formula 1 content right here. But for now, let's get right into the video. So why don't we just get quickly into some quick stats about our guy, Ayrton Senna. He is Brazilian. He has 3 World Drivers' Championships, 41 wins, 80 podiums, 610 total career points. He drove for Tolman Motorsport, Lotus, McLaren, and Williams. Lots of teams, lots of liveries to go through. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Editor Zach, go. Play, just go. So to kick things off, the first car Ayrton Senna ever drove was with Tolman Motorsport in 1984 with the TG183B. Extremely confusing naming scheme, but it is the best looking car he drove with Tolman. As just a few races into the 1984 season, it was actually replaced by the TG184, which in my opinion is not as good looking of a livery. The 183B with the implementation of the red, in my opinion, looks pretty good. I actually never saw this car before making this video, but I actually rate it. It actually looks really nice. I love the color combination. Good looking car, but is it the best? We'll have to wait and see, but for now, let's move on to the next team. So after he showed some pretty great promise and potential in 1984, we fast forward to 1985, where he actually got picked up by Lotus, who is a multi-world championship team at this point. He gets into the 97T, and I'm going to kind of put the 97 and the 98T together for this ranking because they're pretty much the same car. They look exactly alike, and I absolutely love it. In my opinion, one of the most iconic cars in F1's history. The only caveat I will say is I'd rather not have those, circles for their titles. They look kind of cool, but they kind of take away from the car for me. Having the John Player special along the side looks way better, much better implementation, and the color scheme with the black and just the perfect amount of gold is just, oh, it's beautiful. So you may be wondering, what did these two cars do for Senna's career? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. The 97T brought Senna his very first win of his career at the 1985 Portuguese Grand Prix, and both of these cars brought him home to 4th place in the Drivers' Championship, and it just kind of slingshot his career and kind of showed that he was here to stay and be a great, great driver. So we just covered 85 and 86, and now moving on to 1987, technically with the same Lotus team. However, I'm willing to give it a bit of a break and give it its own entry into this list because there's a new title sponsor with Camel, and they ditched the Renault power engine in favor of the Honda power unit. So it's now the Camel Honda Lotus rather than John Player Renault Lotus. So many long names. It was the 80s. That's what they did. But this livery, this livery is pretty hot. From going from such a subdued and classy look in the 85 and 86 with John Player to a very bright and flashy car is not a very easy thing to do. This car is also iconic. It is stunning. The shade of yellow and the shade of blue that they used was absolutely incredible. It looks so good on the track, and I absolutely love this car. So the 99T actually kind of further brought Senna's career ahead in becoming a very well-established driver. He ended up finishing 3rd in the Drivers' Championship this year, and it started a pretty good relationship with Honda, as you're about to see. So when Ayrton finally joined McLaren Honda as the iconic duo that we know of them today as, it was a very good relationship from the second it began, because in his very first year with the team, 1988, he captured his very first World Drivers' Championship. Just to show how good of a driver he was, he figured that car out in less than a year to get a championship. very impressive stuff. But of the 6 years that those two were together, you might be wondering which car that I actually chose. It's actually going to be the 1991 McLaren MP46, mainly because it was the most dominant. He had 7 wins, 12 podiums, and it captured another title for Senna. Now you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, how I came about picking just one of these cars as my favorite from his time with McLaren. I mean, he drove with them for 6 years. It's going to be a lot of liveries to choose from. But okay, how about if I were to show you this one, you would probably think that that's the car I'm talking about. But you're wrong, that's not it. Maybe this one? How about this one? It's got to be this one. Nope, maybe this one? It's actually this one right here. That is the 1991 MP46. Extremely difficult to pick one of these because they're all basically the same. The only reason I chose the 91 was because it was, the design of the car was, I liked that a lot, and it was also, like I said, the most dominant. Honestly, though, that doesn't change the fact that this is the most iconic car in F1 history. If I tell you to picture F1 history as it is, you probably think of this car because it is just so ingrained in the history of the sport. I mean, if you were to just even take away the Marlboro sponsorship, like the actual text from the car, it still looks like it's a Marlboro car. That's how well this car was designed. It looks so good. And I really think that it is one of the most iconic cars in F1 history and will long to be one of the most iconic as well. So this next car is pretty difficult to cover because when Senna moved to Williams in 1994, it wasn't an overly successful beginning to the partnership between the two, retiring in the first 2 races of the season and then obviously retiring in the next race in San Marino, which unfortunately took Senna's life and probably one of the greatest drivers that we had ever seen in the history of Formula One. So definitely not the way that anyone wanted to see his career end, and it was extremely heartbreaking and saddening. I'm 4 years younger than this accident actually happening. I was born in 1998, but even still to this day, it is extremely sad that this is how Senna went out. But regardless, the car that he drove was stunning. The Rothmans-Williams partnership was a very nice, pretty set of cars that they made together. The white with the gold and the red and the blue, great color combination, and it looks very flowing, very nice, but a very unfortunate end to any career in sport. So now moving on to the winner, what I think is the best looking car that Ayrton Senna ever drove in his career. And if I may, before I tell you what it is, can I just say that he is incredibly lucky to have never driven a bad looking car in his career. Senna, you made this extremely difficult for me. Any of these cars could have easily taken #1 spot, but I have to pick just one. And if I have to, it's going to have to be the 97/98T Lotus that he drove. This thing is just stunning. Personally, in my opinion, it's my favorite car in F1 history. Just from, as I've mentioned in my last Schumacher video, I'll leave a link to that above. As I mentioned there, and I think a couple times in this video, the design of a car is very important to me, the aerodynamic look and feel. And I love the way that this car just looks aerodynamically, and the way the livery plays itself to the car is what makes it #1 for me. It is absolutely perfect. They could have easily overdone the gold, but they didn't. It's a perfect blend of a perfect shade of gold with the black. It is just such a good looking car, and it just strikes such a happy nerve with me, and it is definitely my favorite. And if you agree, I'll leave a poll just above so you guys can go ahead and vote on that. So that about does it for yet another video. I hope anyone out there who is new to F1 learned a little something about the history of the sport in this video. And don't forget to follow us up on Twitter at the Apex F1. I'll let you know when we're uploading and doing lots of fun stuff over there. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to lick the stamp, send that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can know when we're posting a video. Drop a like, leave a comment, let me know if you agree, disagree, or any of the like. I have been Zach, this has been Apex F1, and I hope you have a good day.